I want you to start this deep dive by just closing your eyes for a second. Picture the late 90s.
Okay.
You're a plumber. You've squeezed yourself into a crawl space under a house built in, I don't know, the 1920s. It's tight, there's spiders, and it's all made of this dry, dusty wood.
I can already smell the flux. It's that distinct, acrid smell.
Right. The smell of burning threx. And you're down there to fix one leaky pipe, but to do it, you have to literally light a fire. You've got a propane torch inches away from a floor joist.
It was incredibly high-stakes work. People forget that. Plumbing used to be synonymous with fire watch. You didn't just need to know hydraulics. You had to be like a pyrotechnician.
And the risk was always there. The mess, the chemicals, the sheer time it took.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to today. You crawl into that same space, you cut the pipe, grab a shiny brass fitting, and you push it on. Click.
Done.
Done. No fire, no chemicals, no waiting. That single click sound is what we're really unpacking today.
It sounds so trivial, doesn't it? A connector. But that click, I mean, it represents a massive technological shift. We're doing a deep dive into the world of SharkBite fittings and the whole push-to-connect revolution.
And looking at the research we've pulled, this isn't just about making life easier for DIYers. This is really a story about a civil war in the trade industry.
It really is.
It's about tech that came from the car world to change our homes. And it's about the tension between doing it fast and doing it forever.
That's the core of it. We're moving from a world where the connection was made by the craftsman's hand to a world where the connection is made by a factory-engineered mechanism.
So let's trace this back. Because this tech didn't just, appear out of thin air in the plumbing aisle, the notes say its DNA is actually under the hood of your car.
It is, yeah. If you go back to the early 2000s, residential plumbing was, well, it was kind of stuck. You had soldering, which we mentioned, slow, risky, or you had crimping systems for PEX, which required these huge, expensive tools. If you didn't have that $200 crimper, you just weren't fixing that leak.
So it was a high barrier to entry.
Yeah.
If you weren't a pro, you weren't touching the pipes.
Huge. But Reliance Worldwide Corporation, RWC, the company behind SharkBite, they looked at the automotive industry. In a car factory, speed is everything. They were already using quick connect push fittings for things like fuel lines and pneumatic brakes.
Which, when you think about it, is a much, much harsher environment.
Oh, absolutely. An engine bay is vibrating constantly. It's cycling between freezing and boiling. It's exposed to salt and oil. RWC's logic was, if a push fitting can survive that for 100,000 miles, surely it can handle a bathroom sink.
So they bring this to market around 2004. And I remember seeing them then. They were treated like these expensive, weird novelties.
Totally. They were the Sunday night special. You only bought one when the supply house was closed and you had a flood on your hands. But now, by 2026, the adoption curve has just gone vertical. They're not just for emergencies anymore.
And that explosion seems to come down to one word in all the documents: versatility.
It's the universal translator aspect of it.
Right. Because in the old days, connecting copper to, say, plastic, that was a nightmare.
It was a whole logistical puzzle. If you had a copper pipe and needed to switch to PEX, you needed a specific transition adapter. You needed a torch for one side, a crimper for the other. God forbid you had CPVC in the mix. SharkBite just changed the physics of that problem. One fitting takes copper, PEX, CPVC, PERT, and HDPE.
That's the part that still kind of blows my mind. You don't even need to know for sure what pipe is in the wall. You just buy half-inch coupling and it does the translation for you.
Which is exactly why they dominate the renovation market. Old houses are time capsules of plumbing. You find stuff from the 70s connected to stuff from the 90s. This fitting just bridges those decades instantly.
Okay, but we have to address the skepticism. Because I think every single person who holds one of these for the first time has the same thought. You want me to trust my entire house to a little metal clip and a piece of rubber?
It's a fair question.
How does this actually work? Let's get under the hood.
It feels like magic, but it's actually incredibly precise material science. If we were to slice a SharkBite open, you're really looking at 3 distinct stages of engineering inside.
Let's break them down. The first thing you feel when you push the pipe in is resistance.
Right. That's the grip. It's a grab ring made of 316 stainless steel, and the teeth on this ring are angled inward.
Like a shark's teeth. Is that where the name comes from?
That's exactly it. It lets the pipe slide in easily, but the second you try to pull it back, those teeth bite down. And because stainless is harder than copper or plastic, it actually digs a tiny groove into the pipe. It's a mechanical lock.
So it's basically a Chinese finger trap made of industrial steel.
A very expensive one, yes. The harder the water pressure pushes to blow the pipe out, the deeper those teeth dig in. It's a self-reinforcing mechanism.
Okay, so that's the grip. But the grip doesn't stop the water.
Nope. That's the job of component number 2, the seal.
And this is where the controversy always is. The O-ring.
The O-ring. It's made of EPDM rubber, but, and this is a key detail, it's not just any rubber. The specs highlight that it is peroxide cured.
Why does a curing method even matter?
Because of chloramines. Most city water has chlorine or chloramines in it to kill bacteria. Standard rubble gets brittle and cracks when it's exposed to that stuff for years. Peroxide curing makes the EPDM basically immune to that chemical attack. It stays pliable for decades.
Okay, so we have the grip in the seal, but there's that loose plastic piece inside too. You can hear it rattle.
That's the tube liner. And if you're using PEX, this is absolutely non-negotiable. PEX is plastic, and over time, under the constant pressure of that O-ring, it could deform. It can squash into an oval.
And if that happens, the seal fails.
Instantly. This liner goes inside the pipe and acts like a skeleton, keeping it perfectly round so the O-ring always has a perfect surface to seal against.
It's a lot of engineering packed into what? Less than 2 inches of brass. But RWC didn't just sit on this design. The SharkBite Max release in the mid-2020s seems like it was a direct response to a lot of the complaints.
Oh, it was a major overhaul. The Max line was them flexing their manufacturing muscle. They doubled the burst pressure rating.
I saw that stat 400 psi. That seems like overkill. My house water pressure is set to, like, 60 psi.
It's all about the safety margin. You might be at 60 psi normally, but what about water hammer? When your washing machine slams its valve shut, a pressure wave shoots through the pipes. That spike can be hundreds of psi for a millisecond.
So 400 psi just laughs at those spikes.
It doesn't even notice them. And they changed the usability too, because the old ones, man, you really had to lean into them to get them to seat properly.
You did, especially if you're in a weird position under a sink.
The Max line reinforced the collar, changed the geometry, so it takes about half the force to push in. But the real game changer, especially for the pros, was the wet install capability.
Explain that one. Because with soldering, water is the absolute enemy.
Right. If you're soldering, the pipe has to be bone dry. Even one drop of water turns to steam from the torch, and that steam blows a tiny pinhole in your solder joint. It fails immediately.
I've heard plumbers used to shove bread into pipes to stop the trickle.
Literally Wonder Bread. It's an old trick. But with SharkBite Max, because of how they position the O-ring and grab ring, you can shove the fitting onto a pipe that is actively dripping. You don't have to drain the entire house down.
That's a huge time saver. That turns a 2-hour job into 10 minutes.
And time is money. Which brings us to the whole ecosystem. RWC realized they couldn't just sell a repair coupling. They wanted to own the whole plumbing system. They call it meter to fixture.
Sounds a bit like Apple. Don't just buy the iPhone, buy the whole suite.
It's a very similar playbook. They don't just want you patching a leak. They want you plumbing a whole new house with their stuff. They brought out EvoPEX, a plastic version for new builds. They have braided water heater connectors.
And the ball valves. I saw they have reducing ball valves now.
Yes, which is niche, but brilliant. Usually if you need a shutoff and a pipe size reduction, that's 2 or 3 separate fittings. They combined it into one. It's all about efficiency.
But, and this is the big but of this whole deep dive, despite all that, there is a deep, almost religious divide in the plumbing world about these things.
Civil War was not an exaggeration. You have the traditionalists versus the modernists.
Okay, let's role play this. I'll be the advocate, the modernist.
Go for it. Sell me the dream.
My argument is reliability through consistency. When I solder a joint, the quality depends on, how much coffee I've had, how dark a crawl space is. It's variable. With a SharkBite, the connection is manufactured to a tolerance of 1/1000th of an inch. I get the same perfect seal every time. No fire hazard, and if I mess up, I just use a little clip, pull it off, and try again. It's forgiving.
That's a strong case, especially the consistency argument. Factory quality control versus field condition.
Exactly. Now, you be the master plumber with 30 years experience. Destroy my argument. Why do you hate these?
First, I'm going to talk about permanence. A solder joint isn't just a connection, it's a fusion. The copper literally becomes one piece. It will last 80, maybe 100 years.
Yeah.
Your SharkBite. It relies on a rubber O-ring. Rubber degrades. I don't care how peroxide cured it is. In 30 or 40 years, that rubber will lose its elasticity. And if I bury that behind a tiled shower wall, I am building a ticking time bomb into my client's house.
That's the fear factor, the callback nightmare.
Exactly. And then there's pride. Anyone can push a fitting together. Soldering is an art. Using a SharkBite feels, well, bush league to some pros. It lowers the barrier to entry so much it almost feels like cheating.
And the cost has to be a factor.
It's the practical barrier. A copper elbow is $1. A SharkBite is $8. If I'm plumbing a hotel with 5,000 joints, using SharkBite would literally bankrupt the project. It's not feasible for large-scale work.
So the pro argument is too expensive for big jobs and too risky for permanent hidden jobs.
That's the gist of it. But we need to bust a myth here, because you'll hear guys say, it's illegal to put them behind a wall.
Oh, I see that in forum comments all the time. You can't bury them.
And that is factually false. We check the codes. The UPC and the IPC, the two major plumbing codes, both certify these fittings for behind the wall and even underground use.
So you can legally bury a SharkBite in concrete.
You can. They have a special wrap for it to protect the brass, but yes, it's legal. Now, whether you should is the debate we're having. But the code officials have signed off.
Well, that leads perfectly into the how. Because even if the fitting is perfect, the installer is not. The notes call this the Achilles heel of the system.
This is where probably 90% of failed SharkBites come from. They're not failed fittings, they're failed installations. And it all starts with the cut.
I've seen people use hacksaws on pipe.
A disaster. If
Yeah.
you use a hacksaw, you leave a jagged, ragged edge on the copper. Now think about that little O-ring inside the fitting. You take that jagged pipe and you shove it past the rubber. What happens?
You're just slicing the O-ring on its way in.
You're shredding it. It might not leak right away, but you've compromised the seal from the start.
So rule 1, use a proper tubing cutter.
Yes. But rule 2 is the one everybody skips. Deburring.
The little reaming tool.
Yeah. Even a clean cut leaves a sharp edge on the outside of the pipe. You have to take a deburring tool and just smooth that edge, chamfer it so it slips past the O-ring gently, not like a knife. If you skip the deburr, you're gambling.
It takes 5 seconds.
But people get lazy. And there's one more failure point. The depth marker.
This is the measure twice, push once rule.
Exactly. You have to know how deep the pipe is supposed to go. You lay the fitting next to the pipe, mark the depth with a Sharpie, because when you push, you'll feel some resistance when you hit the grab ring. A lot of people stop there.
They think they're done?
They think they're home.
Yeah.
But you have to push past that to seat it against the O-ring. If you don't see that Sharpie line disappear into the fitting, you are not sealed.
That's a great visual. If you can still see the line, you're in trouble.
It just removes all the guesswork.
I want to zoom out and talk about real-world resilience. Because we had that massive freeze in Dallas a few years ago. That was a huge test for plumbing systems.
It was a massive stress test. And interestingly, the data that came out of that event really favored the new school of plumbing.
Really? I would have thought the soldered copper would be stronger.
Copper is strong, but it's rigid. When water freezes, it expands by about 9%. Copy doesn't stretch, it bursts. But PEX pipe has flexibility. It can actually balloon out and then shrink back down. And the SharkBite fittings, because they allow for a tiny bit of play and rotation, they survive much better than rigid solder joints.
So the flexibility of the mechanical joint was actually a feature in that case, not a bug.
It was. But, you know, flip the script. What about a house settling? Or shifting soil underground?
Right.
Some engineers argue that a mechanical joint with an O-ring is more susceptible to stress from that kind of lateral movement than a fused joint. That's still the long-term question.
It really feels like there is no perfect system. Just the right system for the job you're doing right now.
That's the mature take. A master plumber in 2026 shouldn't be anti-SharkBite. They should just know when to use it and when not to. You don't use it to plumb a hotel, but you absolutely use it to fix a live leak in a flooded basement.
It's about having a full quiver of arrows.
Exactly.
So before we wrap, what does this all mean for the future of the trade? We've gone from craftsmanship by fire to engineering by manufacturing.
It's a democratization of repair. It used to be that if a pipe burst, you were helpless. You had to call the wizard with the torch. Now, a homeowner with $10 and a YouTube video can save their own house from flooding. And that is undeniably a good thing for consumers.
But it does change the definition of skill.
It shifts the skill from the hands to the head.
Yeah.
The value of a plumber isn't just can you make a watertight joint anymore. The fitting does that. The value is, do you understand flow rates? Do you understand expansion loops? Do you understand the system?
So we're moving from being operators to being system architects.
In a way, yes. The manual labor barrier is getting lower, but the complexity of the systems themselves is going up.
Well, I, for one, am glad I don't have to learn how to sweat copper to fix a laundry sink. but I definitely have a new respect for the little brass ring that makes it all possible.
It's a fascinating piece of engineering hiding in plain sight.
Here's a thought I want to leave you with today. As we automate and engineer the skill out of these physical tasks, whether it's plumbing with push fittings or even writing code with AI, what happens to the intuition that comes from doing it the hard way? Do we lose something fundamental when we stop struggling with the materials? Or does it just free us up to solve bigger problems?
That's the million-dollar question for every single trade right now.
Something to chew on next time you look under your sink. Thanks for diving deep with us. Keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next one.